Welcome everyone, and welcome to our Jewish and Model Seder. My name is Carmel Tanaka, and I am the founder and executive director of JQD Vancouver. And I have the honor of opening our program today, presented in partnership with organizations focused on bringing together diverse communities, coast to coast, who are multiracial, multicultural, multi-faith, queer, and trans. And these organizations are JQD Vancouver, Waldman Library, Barrett Center for Jewish Culture, as well as Jewish and LGBTQ at the J at the Miles Nadal JCC. And we also have Rabbi Susan Shamash with us. This online event is organized by Jewish individuals and organizations, as just mentioned, working and living in Vancouver, BC, on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, and in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. I would like to open with a poem from In Honor of Our Grandmothers. I have the book right here. If you can see it, In Honor of Our Grandmothers, a beautiful collaboration between Indigenous and Jewish poets and artists. And I'm going to read the poem titled, and you can follow on the screen there, Ode to Horsechild for George Littlechild by Gary Gottfriedson. In the moon, when horses shed, don't be afraid to close your eyes. Magic is one song away. Two painted horses stomp dance in a field where rain settles dust. Thunder hooves gallop to hand drum songs. At dawn, the red prairie sky shakes hands with old man sun, reaching over the blue mountains at dusk. T-I-M-E has no pity. Wild roses wait for the next moon. And on the other side of the poem is this beautiful artwork, which you also see on your screen, titled Natasha Ray Learns Cree. It's by George Littlechild. And I'm going to read the little text that's underneath. My brother's daughter, Natasha Ray, learns Cree. This is about a young girl gaining knowledge of her culture through language. This is an important step, for it will link her to her ancestral past and will allow her to communicate with others who speak Cree. I want to honor her and celebrate the significance of our young people connecting to their culture through language. Now, many of us here today come from mixed backgrounds with varying degrees of connectedness to our Jewishness, and we are here to celebrate our diverse identities and cultures and share today how we bring all the things to the Seder table. Now I would like to invite my friend and fellow Jupanese community member, Karen Schreiber-Sasaki, to dive into what is a model Seder.
Hi, everybody. I am the person who is tasked today with controlling the slideshows. So please forgive me. I can't see any of your faces. So yeah, if anything is going amiss for you today, or you need any technical support, please feel free to put that into the chat. My colleague Kara is taking care of the technical aspects of our Zoom today, and we'll be happy to help you if that's something that you need. I'm Lauren, as Carmel introduced. I'm the manager of Jewish Community Inclusion and Engagement at the Miles Nadal JCC in downtown Toronto, or Toronto. So a model Seder. So first of all, what is a Seder? A Seder is a pedagogical tool that we use at Passover to tell the story of the Jewish Exodus. A model Seder is a laboratory. And so for the next 2 hours, we're going to be together exploring and going through systematically all the steps that make up a Seder, a ritualistic dinner that is done in a specific order, Seder meaning order. And we're gonna, it's a time where we're not actually doing a Seder, so we're not gonna actually be telling the story and going through all the steps, but we're doing it from a zoomed out lens. And with the particular lens of how we can make our Seder relevant, interesting, meaningful, and how we can have it reflect the people around the table. That, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is making it relevant and speak to the people at your table. And in particular, today we're coming with our hats of looking to be inclusive towards interfaith, intercultural, mixed heritage, multicultural, whatever you want to call your family or chosen family, queer, trans, and all of the alphabet soup that makes up the queer community. So that's our particular focus today. But I think these lessons that we're going to be, and what we're going to be talking about today, translates beyond just the particulars of the communities that that we focus on and that we are part of, but also can be attributed and used as a lens for like any story that you want to be telling and any people that you want to include at your Seder. So I do think the lessons will travel. So that's a model Seder. That's what we're doing today. Just as a sort of an overarching principle, in case you get disconnected and you have to leave some part through our model Seder today, I just want to talk very briefly about overarching ways in which you can use the elements of the Seder to be inclusive or to reflect the people at your table. You might choose readings that are particularly significant or hold meaning for the people at your table. In my little example here, I've chosen something from Around Freedom by Nelson Mandela. The foods that you serve can reflect your cultures and heritages. They don't, it doesn't have to be any particular food. There's no, if you don't have to have matzo ball soup at a Seder, you can really be anything. This picture is of a tsukune matzo ball soup. It's not actually matzo balls, they're turkey meatballs, Japanese turkey meatballs that a friend of ours, Kristen Posner, Eriko Posner, created. So that's a way of bringing in your culture or the culture of those at the table. If you're using a Haggadah, a book that is the guide for the Seder that already exists, what images are showing up in that booklet? It might be fun to start slipping in family pictures or pictures of Seders that you've held in the past and the people that have been to those Seders. That might be a way of bringing meaning to your Seders. What are the languages spoken at your table? Is there French? Is there Spanish? Is there Yiddish, Ladino? Like really anything. And how can you use language to bring that to your table? The other way that you can do, which is like extremely Passover, is to bring in ritual items and symbolic items that hold meaning and that reflect those who are at the table. So here's a quick picture. This is my Seder table from last year, and that plate, it's not a traditional Seder plate. It doesn't have doesn't have the words written in script of what goes on the Seder plate in Hebrew. It's actually a plate that we inherited from my husband's aunt. It's Amari Japanese pottery. My husband is of Japanese ancestry, and we inherited this plate from his aunt. Funnily enough, my family also collects Amari pottery, and this is stuff that I grew up with. So it's an interesting little meeting of both of our families and holds a lot of meaning. And the plate, I don't know if you can see it, but it's dissected into sections. So like gives an opportunity to, for us to put symbolic foods in particular sections. And I looked at it and thought, oh, this is our Seder plate. So just little ways that you can bring yourself to the table. And all of the stuff that's on the Seder plate, we're going to talk about in a little bit. So I'll leave that for now. But here, if you take nothing from today, take these things of how you can use the elements of the Seder to bring and reflect those around the table. I'll throw it throw over to Rabbi Susan, who allow me to introduce. Rabbi Susan is a progressive independent rabbi from Vancouver who is passionate about open tent Judaism. Her services include interfaith, same-sex, genderqueer, event officiation, and I'm delighted to be bringing her to you all today. So I'll throw it over to you, Rabbi Susan.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. I'm so delighted to be here today. This event has been a long time in the making. There's been a lot of thought and collaboration that's gone into it. It started with Carmel and me wanting to do more for mixed faith, race, culture, queer singles and families, peoples of all sorts of diverse identities in the Vancouver area. And we were inspired by Lauren's work with Jewish And in Toronto, and have been really excited to collaborate with her. We think this may be the first event of this kind. We're not entirely sure. There's lots of opportunities out there to learn about the Seder and about Pesach, but hosting a model Seder is kind of unique. So welcome all of you who've chosen to go on this journey with us today. Before we go to the slide here, which is a little icebreaker activity, I wanted to talk just a little bit more about what a Seder is. Lauren mentioned that it literally means order. The Passover Seder is a ritual, a holy task that is comprised of 15 separate steps that are performed on behalf of a community. A ritual, and I am a ritualist, I'm dedicated to ritual, is a container that grounds and uplifts us. There's great value in a slow, deliberate, carefully orchestrated ritual that requires preparation and community. So today I'll guide you through the steps. We'll spend more time on some than others because we only have 2 hours. One more thing that I want to mention about the Pesach Seder is that conceptually, everyone at the Seder is a guest and royalty. We are all royal guests. And so we are to recline in comfortable chairs with lots of cushions to lean on. We are served because both guests and royalties are served. So if we're together in person, we would serve each other. We would wash each other's hands. We would pour each other's wine or grape juice and so on. As this is a model Seder, we aren't really pouring or serving or washing, but it's important to remember to do this at your Seder. So like any well-organized event, it's always a good idea to begin every Seder with an icebreaker. Since the story of Pesach is of a particular journey from slavery to freedom, the Exodus and the main purpose of a Seder is to personalize that story. We have some questions for you. I believe it comes from a Moroccan custom. So here are your questions. Who are you? Where do you come from? And where are you going? Please take a few moments to think about your answers and then answer them in whatever way is meaningful to you in this moment, and post your answers in the chat. And Kara will summarize after a minute or so and share your answers with us. Who are you? Where do you come from? And where are you going?
I think while we're waiting for folks to answer, Rabbi Susan, you can keep us moving because we have a lot to
Okay.
cover in 2 hours.
All right. You can keep putting your answers in as we proceed. So, and then at some point a little bit later, Kara will share the answers with us. So what is a Haggadah? Every Seder has a Haggadah, and literally it means the telling. It's a script for the night containing instructions, prayers, blessings, stories, and songs. Everyone has their own preferred version. The basic text of the traditional Haggadah is almost identical to that used in the 11th century. You may be interested to know that. However, in the 1960s and 70s, many different versions began to appear. And now there are literally hundreds of Haggadot, which is the plural of Haggadah, that are available, each laying out the same basic ritual, but with a different spin. Political, environmental, humanist, humanitarian, LGBTQ, mixed faith, culture, race, feminist. The possibilities are endless. Many of us have a whole library of Haggadot. And now there's a website called Haggadot.com that has made it possible for everyone to create their own. In fact, we have done just that for you, a gift from us to you. 81 pages of inspiration for you to use at your own Seder, if not this year, then at any time in the future. And I think that in advance of this, Lauren sent out a link to the Haggadah, but maybe you could, it could be posted in the chat.
Yeah, Kara, can you throw it into the chat for
Yeah,
us, please?
great.
There's no pressure to follow along in the Haggadah today because we're
Yeah.
not going to be going through it precisely, but it is there for you to take what you like and leave the rest, as they say.
So maybe this would be a good time to pause. Kara, could you read us the responses people have been posting in the chat?
Yes, I would love to. So we have a Japanese foodie coming from a Jewish Japanese foodie and in search of the yummiest Japanese recipes. I am a single mother. I come from upheaval. I'm going toward joy. I am a Christian in a Jewish family, a mother, a grandmother, a used to be computer programmer, a friend. I come from a place of love and I am going. I don't know where, but welcome company. I'm a spiritual traveler. I come from a place of questions and I'm searching for a Jewish life and space where I can continue to question. I'm a gay Jewish old guy living in Vancouver, married for 26 years to my Asian husband. I come from working poor Toronto-born secular Jewish parents whose parents were from Russia. Ever since I turned 70, I have no idea where I'm going except forward. I am warmth and strength. I come from struggle and I am going to connection and nature. Couple more. I am a mother and wife in a Japanese family. I come from vague cultural understanding and I'm going toward better cultural understanding and inclusion. And I'm a Jewish transgender autistic artist, come from the strength of my ancestors. I want to continue the legacy of strength and resilience of my ancestors.
Oh, those are all beautiful. Thank you for sharing those. I was going to write that I am a Jewish rabbi, second career. And right now I'm coming from a place of constriction. I have a sister who's very ill in hospital, and I'm hoping to move towards her health. Oof.
It's not a good Seder if you don't cry. That's what I think.
That's right. That's right. So now we move to, thank you, Carmel, to candlelighting. Like almost every Jewish ritual, the Seder officially begins with candlelighting. I'll recite the traditional masculine blessing in Hebrew. Carmel will read the blessing in non-binary Hebrew, and Lauren will read a secular humanist blessing, and also a blessing for interfaith families and for those who are not Jewish. So I am not actually lighting candles, but if I were, I would draw the light towards my eyes, and I would cover my eyes and sing the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'etzivanu lehadlik ner shel yom tov. And then I would open my hands and look at the light as if that's the first time that I see the light. Carmel.
Yes. Hi. I don't know if people can see me, but what you see, oh, thank you for spotlighting me. So Rabbi Susan just did the first blessing in blue, which is in masculine Hebrew. The second one is in feminine Hebrew, and I'm going to do the one in non-binary Hebrew. And this year, the first night of Passover falls on Friday. So it's a combination of Shabbat, the Sabbath, as well as it being a Yom Tov at the end. So this is how it sounds reading it in non-binary Hebrew. Bruchei ate ya ein hachaim asher kidshenu b'mitzvotehe v'tzivenu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov. And in English, this roughly translates to, you are blessed, O spring of life, who makes us holy with their commandments and commands us to light candles for the Sabbath and this festival. And if you want to have this on hand at your upcoming Seder, you can go to the website on the slide, www.jqdvancouver.ca/Jewish Queer Blessings. And if you are curious to learn more about non-binary Hebrew, www.nonbinaryhebrew.com is an excellent way to start and learn how to conjugate in non-binary Hebrew.
Thanks, Carmel. That was beautiful. So I will share a secular blessing with you all, if that is your jam. Baruch haor ba'olam, Baruch haor ba'adam, Baruch haor hashabbat ve'yom tov. Blessed is the light of the world. Blessed is the light of humanity. Blessed is the light of Shabbat and this festival. And I'm going to share with you also a blessing for anybody who isn't Jewish, because I don't know about you, but I have a lot of people who are from other backgrounds who aren't Jewish at my Seder. Ever since I started doing my own Seders, that has been the case. In fact, for years, I was the only person who was Jewish at my Seders, and they were lovely, beautiful, meaningful Seders. And I only recently found this blessing. It came from a Haggadah put out by the organization Jew Belong. I don't love everything they do, but I do love this blessing. Yes, so I will share it with you. A blessing for anyone who isn't Jewish. May everyone who shares in a Jewish life feel welcomed and integrated. We lovingly acknowledge the diversity of our community and are deeply grateful for the love and support you provide by opening your heart to Judaism, no matter how big or small a part it is in your day. Your presence at this Jewish experience is valued. It's not taken for granted because not everyone in this broken world will sit at a Shabbat dinner or attend a Passover Seder. We're a very small people and history has made us smaller. As we once again see a rise in hatred and hear fear in the voices of our community, we are grateful for your presence. We pray with all our hearts that all that you give to the Jewish people will come back to you and fill your life with joy. Amen.
Amen. Amen, amen, amen. So as I already mentioned, there are 15 steps to the Pesach Seder. I'll spend most of the rest of our time together guiding you through them, what they are and why we do them. But first, we have some more questions for you, and take your time as we go through. And at some point, when people have had a chance to think about them and answer them, Kara will read them to us. But here are the questions we would like you to think of and respond to as we move through the next few steps. So what do you bring to the Seder table? How do you bring yourself and your experience to the structure of Passover? And how do you make it meaningful for you and the people at your table? So even though we're going to move on from this slide, Carmel, chicken teriyaki. We're going to move on from this slide, but Kara has posted the questions in the chat. So if you forget what they were, you can just scroll up in the chat. So the next thing is the Passover Seder order, as Lauren calls it, the table of contents song. Now, I never knew that's what its name was. I always just thought it was called Kadesh Urchatz because those are the first two words. But Lauren taught me that its name indeed is the table of contents song. Not everybody does this, but I love the tradition. We sing through the table of contents, and after we complete a step, before we move on to the next step, we sing the table of contents song up to that step. And then we do the step, and then we just keep on going. Towards the end of the evening, we might abandon that because after a while, people just want to keep moving. But it's a great way to actually learn what all the steps are. And
it's a great way to know when dinner's coming.
Yes. So here's a Sephardic version of the table of contents song. And if you want to follow along in the Haggadah, it's
My
on
name is Cantor
13.
Annalise Ocanto Romo, and I am here to share with you a special melody for the order of the Seder. My family's Jewish background is Sephardic, specifically Spanish Portuguese. And in our family Seder, we love to incorporate traditions, rituals, and of course music into our Seder. So I hope that you enjoy this tune. Kadesh Urchatz Karpas Yachatz Magid Rochsa Motzi Hatza Maror Korech Shulchan Orech Safun Barech Hallel Nitzah. Chag Sameach, everyone.
That's so beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. I love that. So some of us know the Ashkenazi version, but that's the first time I've been exposed to the Sephardic version. Another way of bringing yourself and your culture to the table. I apologize for the kind of thumping in the background here. My dog has chosen this exact moment to start playing with her treat. So anyway, it's a joyous sound. So the first step of the Seder is Kadesh, which is the sanctification of the day. We pour and drink 4 cups of wine or grape juice throughout the Seder. You will see that there are lots of 4s in the Seder. Today, we'll only recite a blessing over the first cup. And the Parrott Center has developed a beautiful set of secular blessings, which I will also recite. If you could move to the next slide. Lauren. Let's read this together. Let's pour our virtual cups of wine. And there aren't so many of us. If you would like to unmute and we can hear each other's voices and read the blessings together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. The second blessing is a secular humanist blessing, which I would also like to recite. Bruchim habaim hashemesh vehageshem shehaborim pri hagafen. Blessed are the sun and the rains that bring forth the fruit of the vine. And then here are, these are all four of the blessings that the Parent Center for Secular Judaism here in Vancouver has developed for blessing the 4 cups of wine. Let us drink the first cup to the heroism of women and men all over the world, to the sacrifices they have made, and to their devotion to life. L'chaim. Let us drink the second cup of wine to celebrate the liberation of people from tyranny of all kinds everywhere. Let us drink the third cup of wine to Elijah the prophet, who symbolizes our commitment to work with others towards a better tomorrow. And then finally, we were slaves in Egypt and we were slaves in fascist Europe. We have much to remember. Let us drink the fourth cup of wine in memory of those who were taken from us and in honor of those who fight for freedom and life.
If you drink 4 cups at the beginning of the Seder, it will make it hard to get through the rest of the Seder.
Yes. And if you're at a Seder of someone who is, I don't know, particularly compliant with the rules of halakha, of Jewish law, you're required to drink something like 4 or 5 ounces at each cup. And you can imagine by the end how drunk I'd be.
Just wanted to jump in to say that if there are any questions coming up for you, I meant to say this earlier, while we're going through the Seder, we're going to just keep going to make sure that we get through everything, but please just throw them in the chat and we can get to them at the end of our program. Questions are really important and such a key part of the Seder. So if you have a question, throw it in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to it.
That's great.
Are we ready to then go to the next slide, Rabbi Susan?
Yeah, somebody said, where are those secular blessings that I just recited? I don't think that they made it into our Haggadah, did they?
They might not have, but we will be sending out a follow-up email with everything that we've covered, a recording of the video. I'll make sure to include those blessings as well as many, many other resources. So thank you for that question. We'll make sure to get them to you.
Yes. So the second step, urchatz, hand washing. So this is a ritual ablution, as we like to say. It's a spiritual cleansing that we pour water over our hands. But remember, we're royalty, so we pour water over each other's hands. From a practical perspective, the water should be warm enough to make the washing pleasant. And traditionally, a pitcher of water is used. You pour water over the right hand, then the left hand, and you can dry your hands on a towel afterwards. Some people like to add something nice smelling to the water to make it extra special, like essential oil or orange blossom water. And ordinarily, a blessing is said over the ritual of hand washing, but not this time, because we aren't about to eat anything substantial. In our Haggadah that we have provided you, there are a number of beautiful ideas or readings that you might wish to use. You can use this moment as an opportunity to share hopes and expectations for the Seder. A poem is there by Amelia Diamond that seems particularly apt during COVID. And there's also something about the poem talks about washing our hands as an act of love, of care, and to wash away the fear. And then there's another offering there that is a queer take on hand washing. So we've washed our hands, and the next thing we do is we eat karpas. I love this.
In case people are not familiar, this is a drag queen who goes by the name Hedda Lettuce. I thought she would be perfect for karpas.
Yeah, karpas is eating the green vegetable. And so there she is with her head of green hair, head of lettuce. So this is the first bite of food people get at a Seder. It's the green vegetable. It's a sign of a symbol of spring and of renewal. And we dip it in salt water, which symbolizes purifying tears before eating. Apart from its ritual symbolism, karpas also serves as hors d'oeuvres before the meal. Wise Seder arrangers make sure there's plenty available because the meal is still a long way off. In our house, we provide boats of raw vegetables for each guest to munch on, and several different kinds of dips because, you know, you're dipping in salt water. So we just kind of expand that concept and have other kinds of dips so that people can enjoy, and it helps to helps them not be quite so anxious to get to the meal because they're not getting they're not starving to death as we move through it. So let's move on to the Seder plate. Lauren is going to talk to us about that.
I get to talk to us about the Seder plate. I feel like I'm going to my kids' kindergarten class to do a chat. I'm going to play you a little video and then I'm going to talk about things. Okay, that just made me happy, so that's why I wanted to share that with you. I'm gonna talk about the things that are on the Seder plate and break them down for you. So we place that Seder plate on our table as a reminder to discuss certain aspects of the Passover story, and each item has its own significance. Maror, the bitter or herbs, which in Ashkenazic households, Eastern European households, is usually horseradish, brings tears to the eyes and recalls the bitterness of slavery. The Seders refers to the slavery in Egypt, but people are also called to look at their own bitter enslavements. Charoset, which is the polar opposite of maror, is a sweet salad of apples, nuts, wine, and cinnamon that is meant to represent the mortar used by the Hebrew slaves to make bricks. However, that's just one recipe for charoset, and every culture, every corner of the world has their own recipe. If you have like people with nut allergies at your tables, there's certainly recipes without nuts. The Mizrahi recipes often include Ceylon or like date syrup, and they're really delicious, but really there's a myriad. So if you're looking, that's a really good place to zhuzh things up and bring in some other notes into your Seder. Karpas, which we just covered, was the green vegetable, and it's usually parsley, but any spring green can do, used to dip in salt water. It symbolizes the freshness of spring And some families still use boiled potatoes for karpas, which is continuing a tradition from Eastern Europe when it was difficult to obtain fresh spring greens. The salt water that we dip the karpas in symbolizes the tears and sweat of enslavement, though paradoxically, it's also a symbol for purity, springtime, and the sea. I almost feel like I want to ask you about this, Rabbi Susan, but chazeret is the second bitter green, and I don't really have a good reason why there's a second bitter green. It was just very, very bitter. What do you think? Why is there a second bitter green?
I think Rabbi Susan might have stepped away.
Okay, never mind.
The double, the trauma of the Jewish people. I don't know.
Sounds good. Great. Well, you know what? We'll ask her when she gets back.
Another midrash has just been born.
Zroa.
Are we on the orange?
No, we're not on the orange. I was just asking why there's a second bitter herb.
Yeah, I never quite figured that out. It's called chazeret. And no.
Okay.
We don't know the answer to that.
We'll look it up. We'll
Sorry,
try to figure out why there's a second bitter herb.
Yeah.
Zeroa is one of the most striking symbols of Passover. It's the roasted lamb shank bone, which commemorates the Paschal lamb sacrifice made the night the ancient Hebrews fled Egypt. Some say it symbolizes the outstretched arm of God because the Hebrew word zeroa can mean arm. Many vegetarians use a roasted beet instead. And also I've heard of people using a yam, as making it a Paschal yam. So if you're a household that likes puns, you could do that. But people often use beets because they're red and reminds you of the blood. This isn't a new idea. The great biblical commentator Rashi suggested using beets back in the 11th century. So there's some facts for you. Beitzah, the roasted egg, it's a symbol in many different cultures, usually signifying springtime and renewal and birth. Here it stands in place of one of the sacrificial offerings, which was performed in the days of the Second Temple. Another popular interpretation is that the egg is like the Jewish people. The hotter you make it for them, the tougher they get. Since eggs are the first item offered to a mourner after a funeral, some also say it invokes a sense of mourning for the destruction of the temple. So that's the basics. That's what's usually on every Seder plate. And now we're going to get into the additions because this is the time to bring those in. And I'm going to throw the orange over to Rabbi Susan because she loves it and she wanted to do it.
All right. So one of the first extras that I experienced being added to the traditional Seder plate was an orange. And it started out as a symbol for the inclusion of women in Jewish communal leadership roles. There is a story, which I now think is really an urban myth, but the story is of some Orthodox male rabbi saying something like a woman belongs on the bima, which is the raised podium in synagogues where the services are led by the cantor and the rabbi and maybe some lay leaders. So a woman belongs on the bima like an orange belongs on the Seder plate. So after that, women started putting the orange on the Seder plate. But it's now come to symbolize including all those who have been or currently are being excluded from the forefront of religious communities or spiritual practice, including women, sexual and gender minorities, poor and differently abled. The orange symbolizes the flavor and sweetness inclusion brings to all of us.
Susan. All right, we'll get to some other inclusions. This is my colleague Esther's. These are her beitzah. Esther, like I, we are in interfaith, intercultural relationships, and often, not always, but often Passover falls at the same time as Easter. And so we're often dyeing eggs. And so we put our beitzah is an Easter egg because we want to acknowledge what else is happening that's really important in our families at the moment. And I think just sort of pushing back against shame and burying, you know, what things are actually happening for people. So if you're an Eastover family, like, or a household like us,
Eastover, that's so great.
well, you know, take it. It's here for you. Absolutely. So this is something that you might consider. I'm going to talk about the Ruth's Mix, which is something that also came out of that Jew Belong Haggadah that I loved. So Ruth's Mix, as in the book of Ruth, as in the great grandmother of King David, she herself was in an interfaith marriage. Ruth's Mix welcomes everybody to the Seder and honors the growing diversity of the Jewish people, those who were born Jewish, those who converted, those who are not Jewish, and those who just came for singing and wine. So Ruth's Mix is a combination of nuts, raisins, chocolate. I mean, it's trail mix. You do what you want, put what you want in it. But the idea is that all of these ingredients are good on their own, but together they make something new and even better. And I'm going to share the blessing for this one because I think it's really lovely and it's something that I include in my own Seder. So I want to make sure to share it with you. May everyone who shares in a Jewish life feel welcome and integrated. We lovingly acknowledge the diversity of our community and are deeply grateful for the love and support you provide by opening your hearts to Judaism, no matter how big or small a part it is in your day. Oh, we read that one already. Did I? Yes. And there's an addition for reading to families raising kids, because to raise kids in a religion that you don't necessarily take part in is a big thing. We offer special thanks to those who are raising their children with Jewish identity. Our children may mean hope, life, and future. With all of our hearts, we want to thank you for your love and willingness to give the ultimate gift to the Jewish people. And these are adapted from Rabbi Janet Marder. I'm going to show you some other potential things that you could put on your Seder plate.
Before you do that, Lauren, could I, there was a question in the chat.
Sure. I can't see the chat, so you'll have to tell me about it.
So someone asked, is there a specific order for the food to be plated? So I just thought I would run and get my Seder plate here. And although it's in Hebrew, there is an order that they have created here. So I'm going to have to look at it. So this says Pesach, that's where the roasted bone or yam goes. The egg, Beitzah, or it is in English, there it is, goes up there. Oh no, Pesach, that's the center. That's where I put the orange. Sorry, that's just the center. I put the orange there and all the other extras. The egg is up here. The shank bone goes over here, or the yam or beet. The bitter herb down here. The charoset, the cementy stuff over here. The parsley, the whatever the green thing is here. And the horseradish, which is the extra maror. There's the two of them. And I don't know if this is the standard. If you have like this, it'll have names and you just kind of put things in the names, but I don't think it really matters where things go.
Right. And you can, you know, like we talked about earlier, you don't have to use a Seder plate that you bought at a Judaica store that says what things are and where they go. It's your Seder and you get to decide, you know, what you're using and how you're using it. And if you want to use a bunch of like little dishes and put them all on a cutting board, like that is equally valid.
Like a charcuterie plate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard that there's a specific order. I don't think I've ever seen the Seder plates all being the same. And so I think the thing where there is a specific order is in the Seder, like in the steps that we're doing. But I think within the Seder plate, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on Seder plates before I continue with these.
There was
extra
someone
things.
who wrote saying that she did a quick Google search that there wasn't a lot of clear information, but it seems like the dual bitter herbs might have to do with one of the steps of what we eat later on. And that may be.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer the sandwich with romaine lettuce as opposed to horseradish, but
Yeah,
we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay,
get
artichokes. So the artichokes are another symbol that people have used in the past to represent interfaith or intercultural families. And this is a reading that I grabbed that says why. Many petals, artichokes have many petals, a thistle and a heart. And this has come to represent the Jewish people. Like an artichoke, which has thistles protecting its heart, the Jewish people have been thorny about this question of interfaith marriage. Let this artichoke on the Seder plate tonight stand for the wisdom of God's creation in making the Jewish people a population able to absorb so many elements and cultures throughout the centuries, yet still remain Jewish. Let the thistles protecting our hearts soften so that we may notice the petals around us. This is a coconut. Coconuts are often put on the Seder plate. I don't know if they're often put on the Seder plate, but they're put on the Seder plate sometimes to represent those who are not able to show up fully as who they are on the inside. So whether that's whatever way in which you might be closeted, this can represent that. The reading that I have says, tonight the orange is joined by the coconut, which represents those who are still locked inside their shell, hiding from the world, their inner beauty as an out and proud LGBTQ Jew. We notice that the shell is nearly impossible to crack with our bare hands and equally difficult for the beauty inside to escape on its own. We know from experience that once a coconut is opened, the richness of its inner essence pours out, almost with excitement of its long-awaited liberation. And I have some other examples of things that you might include. Some people include olives as a symbol of peace, particularly peace in Israel-Palestine because of the role that olive trees play there. My friend Rachel Isner she includes acorns on her Seder plate, or pine cones, or other things that are relevant to you where you are, to represent Indigenous solidarity. Last year, and probably this year again, I will include garlic. Garlic has a big role to play in Jewish folk culture as a protective amulet and something that we use to bring us back to health. You know, with COVID going on, this might be something to include on your plate. I have COVID right now. I will certainly be including garlic on my Seder plate this year. And this year in particular, looking to include sunflower seeds to represent a wish for peace in Ukraine. And then, you know, you could also just personalize your entire plate. What we have here is from, this is from the African American Seder plate for Passover by Michael Twitty. Michael Twitty is, I'm just going to read what he's written here about this Seder plate and how he's personalized everything. This is from Understanding Your Seder Plate is Understanding Yourself by Michael Twitty. Food for me is a vehicle for exploring every part of who I am. I'm African American, Jewish, gay, Southern, a man of size. Each of these pieces is a part of my journey, and I look to our collective histories as well as those of my ancestors to understand the food I teach about and cook. Here's a chicken bone in place of zeroa, or a lamb shank bone, representing traditional sacrifices and migration from oppression to opportunity during the Great Migration. For his charoset, he uses traditionally fruits, nut, and wine. This is molasses and pecans, representing the sugarcane that fueled the beginnings of slavery and the duality of our culture in exile. Though we were in bondage, we found things here to help us cope and overcome. Sweet potato in place of karpas, or spring vegetable, traditionally parsley or a potato, symbolic of using the American environment to perpetuate West and Central African tradition. For egg or beitza, symbol of overcoming oppression, the supreme being, spring and cycles of nature. uses collard greens for maror, or bitter herbs, to symbolize both the bitterness of enslavement, but also how we survived it. Hot peppers in place of horseradish or chazeret, a sharper variety of maror meant to give a sense of the sting of the lash. And that's what the second bitter green is about. And now we know. Also, a spice central to West and Central African foodways, proverbially associated with speaking the truth. He has hoe cake or ash cake made of corn, the closest analog to matzah, the flatbread of slavery, and yet the first food in freedom. This corn cake, simply prepared, was the hardtack of enslavement in colonial and antebellum America. Kitiniot is forbidden for strict Ashkenazi Jews, so matzah may substitute. Kitiniot being like beans and rice. It's a category of food that Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews do eat during Passover, but Ashkenazi Jews generally don't. And he has also included an orange as a modern symbol for including those who are often excluded from the forefront of religious communities or spiritual practice, from women in leadership to sexual minorities to the poor or differently abled. Yes. So there we go. And that's my overview of the Seder plate. And I'm wondering, you know, what things do you put on your Seder plate, whether they're traditional or not, that make it meaningful for you and the people at your table, and why? You know, you can put that into the chat for us. Yeah. And I will hand it back over to Rabbi Susan.
So thank you, Lauren. That's great. I love the Seder plate because it, when I was growing up, it was just the standard, and now it's got all kinds of different meaning. I have a good friend who did some humanitarian work in Cambodia and has become quite identified with the oppression of the Cambodian people. And she puts a package of Cambodian cigarettes on her Seder plate. It really is about what oppression or what symbol is important to you to bring there. So our next step is called Yachatz, the breaking of the matzah. We have a video for you that perfectly describes Yachatz, and I have nothing to add to this.
All right, I'll play it.
Just wait and see. Oh no. Goldie. Well, happy Passover. Oh, Chag Ona.
It'll be my first official Seder.
Is it? Oh my, you're gonna love it. Just wait till you hear about the 10 plagues.
Ooh. Oh, Goldie, speaking of plagues, my life has been in shambles. I'm broken in two. I'm in pieces. I'm crumbling. I've been broken in half. What to do? What to do?
I hear you, Ona. I've been there. But you've come to the right place. A Passover Seder is just fraught with symbolism. Parting of the waters, splitting of the matzah. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
All right. Well, are you ready for the next step? It's very exciting.
What is the next step?
The next step, step 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, is called Yachatz.
Yachatz.
Yachatz. All right. So it involves this plate of 3 matzahs.
Ooh.
For Yachatz, what we're going to do is we're going to take the middle piece of matzah out of these 3, and we're going to break it into 2 pieces.
Why are we breaking it into 2 pieces?
Well, Ona, back in the day of ancient times, we used to make ritual sacrifices at the ancient temples. That's not so, practical these days. So, as a symbolism, we're going to sacrifice a piece of the matzah and break it in 2 and hide one until the very end. And normally we would have children go and find the other piece of matzah called the afikomen, and they would win a prize. That symbolizes the end of the Seder. But in this case, you, Ona, you're gonna find it.
Oh, I love finding things.
Ah, she's so good at looking, let me tell you. Shall we break it?
Let's break it.
Now we take the bigger piece. I'm gonna take this one.
It's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. She was very even. And we're gonna wrap it in a cloth. And then I'm gonna hide it. And then later, you're gonna find it.
Ooh, I can't wait to see what you hide.
Oh my God, it's like hide and seek.
I love it.
I can't wait. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Well, yachatz. Carmel, do you want to share what Jay Cutie did at a virtual Seder and what you did for your nephew during COVID around yachatz?
Oh, sure. So I have a nephew who is, like many of us, multiracial, multicultural. We've got lots of traditions on many of the sides, including his father's side, not just on his mom's side, which is my side of the family. And, you know, it was really hard during COVID to come up with ways to engage him. At the time, I think he was either 6 or 7, because I think we're now in our 2nd year of COVID. And I was stuck on a mountain with my parents in the interior of BC, and my nephew and his dad were in Vancouver. So I had to come up with a way to, one, keep him engaged. And I know that the afikomen and the hiding of the afikomen was and has always been my favorite part, regardless of how old I became. And so I told his father in advance. I texted him. I was like trying to explain to him, who's someone who's not Jewish, like, what do I need him to do? And I said, I need you. Doesn't matter if it's matzah, you can use crackers for all I care. And I think he ended up using those soda crackers that he had in the closet already. And I said, put it into a white cloth and fold it and hide it behind your computer. And as I was reading the story, a kid's story version of Passover for my nephew, I broke the matzah, got the bigger piece, I wrapped it in a white cloth, and I fed it through the camera like this. And his father, out of nowhere, came out with this massive, beautiful thing. And this is when you could really, you know, pull the wool over a kid's eyes. He was still young enough to do that. And my nephew's like mouthed and just dropped. He was like, couldn't believe that it had actually come out of the computer. And I mean, it was a very special moment, and I had no idea that it was going to work so well. But when you have people like my nephew's father who are really engaged and really want to help him connect to his Jewish roots and also his Japanese roots, I'm his like cultural auntie. It's really beautiful to see that it is possible to work together and not to have things siloed, but to engage and incorporate it, and everyone has a role.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's the point of making the Seder your own, is those kinds of moments. So now we get to, this is step 5 of the Seder order, the Magid, telling the story. You might notice that the word Magid and Haggadah sound like they might be related to each other, and they are. In fact, they have the same root, which is about the telling. So this is usually the longest of the 15 Seder steps. And it's the telling of the Exodus narrative. And it's now that the youngest child at the table, or anybody, it does not have to be a child, asks the 4 questions. And every Haggadah lists them. And any person, as I said, can read them, or everyone can read them together. There are some traditional chants that are often used. And the 4 questions all revolve around the basic question, Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halaylot. Why is this night different from all other nights? So the traditional 4 questions are in your Haggadah, followed by a couple of different options for your inspiration that include LGBTQ+. I'm not sure what the next slide is now. I can't remember, but I think it's right. Okay, thank you.
And this illustration is from the Beijing Haggadah, which chronicles the community of the Jewish community in Beijing, China.
And it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
But one of the before I thought we had another slide on the 4 questions. So before I talk about the 4 children,
We'll go back.
Oh, let's go back. Okay, thank you. One of the most important pieces of the Seder is that we are asked or expected to step into the shoes or the sandals of our ancestors and view ourselves as if we were also slaves in Egypt. So the challenge in our modern lives is that most of us can't truly relate to this type of experience. But we can therefore bring ourselves to the Seder and think about what is it in our experience that enslaves us. And the rest of the Magid answers this question, why is this night different from all other nights, with the story of the Exodus, with some Torah study and a description of the 4 types of children. Now that
Oh, there we go.
slide,
We'll go forward.
which is really the four different types of people. So the wise, the wicked, the simple, and the one who does not know enough to ask a question. There are countless images of the 4 types of questioners in different cultures, different philosophies, and different theologies. The conversation around who the different types of people are and what they're really asking is often very rich and deep. One of my favorites, I have to say, is a picture of 4 open books. One has blank pages, one has a lot of writing on the page, one has fire coming out of the page, and actually one is closed book. And so the debate around the table of which of these is simple, which of these is the wicked, which of these is the wise, which is the one who doesn't know how to ask, has been really interesting. People come up with different and compelling explanations for what they think those books are saying. And as for the telling of the Exodus story, there are many, many different ways of doing that. You can dramatize it, you can create your own play, you can write a poem or a song or have a debate, or you can read it from the Haggadah. The possibilities are endless. Some spend weeks on their project with several rehearsals if they're putting together a play. But it doesn't actually have to be the Exodus story that's recounted in the Torah. It can be personal stories of liberation that are shared by those who are around your table, or stories of liberation that touch them even if they aren't personal to them. We didn't have a chat question for you here because our model Seder would be way too long, but this is something for you to explore together for your own Seder. And we have included in our Haggadah many, many different ways of telling and of inspiring the sharing of personal stories. And then finally, we get to, it was not finally in the Seder, but after the telling, we get to the second cup of wine. But we don't drink it yet. Traditionally, we dip a finger into the wine and transfer 10 drops of wine to our plate, one for each of the plagues that were in Egypt. There was blood. Sorry, I need to move my, here we go. Dam, blood, Svardea, frogs, Kinim, lice, Arov, beasts, Dever, cattle disease, Shechin, boils, Barad, hail, Arbe, locusts, Choshech, darkness, and Makat Bechorot, the death of the firstborn. So we spill a drop of wine for each of the plagues because the intention is that we reduce our joy by the drops of wine because of the pain that was inflicted on the Egyptians on the Israelites' behalf. Again, we have in the Haggadah the 10 traditional plagues and many more plagues that have been experienced by people since then and now. There are examples of queer plagues, exclusionary plagues, plagues of ignorance, and plagues of intentionality. And we have shared them with you in our Haggadah. And specifically, there is included there the GLBT 10 plagues. So our next questions for you, if you're so moved, please share in the chat or just take the questions away with you and think about them. What is the story of liberation that is meaningful to you today? What are other plagues in our world that you want to pour out wine for? And as I said, if you are so moved, please put them in the chat, and that will, towards the end, we will have ask Kara to read some of the things that have been going in the chat. And Kara, if you notice that there are some questions that I haven't seen, if you could let me know as we proceed through our model Seder here. But our overarching question really is, what do you need to add to the Seder so that it speaks to you and reflects you and your reality in all of your identities? Then we sing probably the best known song of the Pesach Seder, Dayenu, which literally means it is enough for us. It's enough for us that we were rescued from slavery and we drink the second cup of wine. We have a great video for you here.
I'm really off key, so that's...
No, that's fine.
I
can also snap it from it.
The story of that song is basically each process of redemption along the way might have felt like it could have been enough for us. It's actually not enough for us. Dayenu is only the beginning of the story. It's certainly not the end of the story.
If people spend more time thinking about the lives of others who aren't just like them, Dayenu.
When women and girls have the ability to design their own futures,
Dayenu.
If all human beings have health care as a
If
right,
indigenous communities have control over their own
If
land.
we can put an end to climate change.
When people can vote in free and fair elections.
If there was a world without violence.
If people have clean air to breathe.
If people of color are treated fairly and equitably.
If I didn't have to teach my daughter about sexual harassment and rape.
If no child ever has to go to bed hungry ever again. Dayenu.
That would be enough. And it really wouldn't be enough, but.
It's more like mazel tov, like good job, let's keep going.
Dayenu. Dayenu. Join me, won't you?
Everybody, come on, come on, come on.
Dayenu, Dayenu, Dayenu.
Love that. Dayenu, Dayenu. I think that's just a fabulous, fabulous video. So now we wash hands again. And at this point, I'm going to start speeding up a bit because, we're well into our second hour here.
Well, it also naturally happens at most Seder. It's like, okay, everyone's hungry. It's time to eat. Come on, we can do this.
Yeah, and people are turning the pages and counting how many more pages until we eat. So Raksa is washing hands again, but this time with prayers because we are about to eat. And remember, though, that royal guests don't wash their own hands. Motzi Batsa are steps 7 and 8, which is a blessing before eating the matzah and then eating it. So we raise matzah, then we see a bunch of kids here eating, and we recite 2 blessings over the matzah. The regular blessing, the hamotzi blessing over bread, and one specifically mentioning the mitzvah, the Jewish commandment or obligation of eating matzah at Passover. Most people buy their matzah, but there are a lot of people that actually make their own. And there are now gluten-free options, and many, and you can actually pay a fortune for shmura matzah, which is very, very ultra kosher matzah that has been guarded or watched from the time the wheat is harvested until it comes out of the oven. It's quite delicious, actually, but also very expensive. And after the blessing, everyone breaks off a piece of matzah and eats it. Step 9 is maror, eating the bitter herb. I love this little interfaith moment. Yeah, I know I'm off my route, but I suddenly had this intense craving for bitter herbs. It's kind of perfect Jewish irony that just as your stomach is starting to growl, you get to eat maror, the bitter herb. Whether you eat a fresh slice of horseradish, which promises to bring tears to your eyes, or a leaf of romaine lettuce, which is pretty wimpy, but still bitter, kimchi, wasabi, bitter melon, or jalapeno pepper, or something else representing you, you should be thinking of the bitterness of slavery. Some say that you dip the maror in the charoset, and that would be why you have a leaf of lettuce, because it's easier to dip lettuce. But you can also dip a piece of horseradish into the charoset to taste a small amount of sweetness along with the pain of the bitterness.
Can I briefly interject here just very quickly? So at this point, when everyone's distracted and starting to put food into their mouth, either the head of the household or the designated afikoman hider will sneak away undetected to hide the afikoman. And children who know the drill, or at least their parents or anyone who's around adults will be like, yo, keep an eye on that person, because then you have the best chance of knowing where it's going to be hidden. So just FYI, keep that in the back of your mind that that's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I don't want to slow us down, but I'm curious about if you can, like, if you've experienced a really good hiding place.
Oh my gosh.
If you're looking for a really good hiding, my favorite one that I can remember, like, you never forget these things, but my grandfather one year taped the matzah to the bottom of the table.
Oh,
I thought it was pretty brilliant, and it just stayed with me.
Yeah.
well, some people stew on this like for a year in advance, like after the Seder, think about where they're going to hide it for the next one. It's some really good stuff. I remember my dad hid like inside the closet. He actually or no, that was for hide and seek. That was something else. But I actually was given the honor of having to hide the matzah one year. I'm like a complete professional seeker of the afikomen. Never once have I had the honor, and I had to do it in a place that was new. They had just moved from a house to an apartment, and I thought that was very unfair because I didn't have time to like inspect the drawers and see like what I can lift, and like also this is another person's home. Like how far can I dig to hide something? And like where do you want people to be looking? But anyway, so I was at the table and I just like nonchalantly grabbed a pillow from my tush and I sat on it because I remembered the pillow from the house that it had a zipper, and underneath the table I'm like slowly every few like centimeters and millimeters just unzipping it so that no one knows that this is happening, and I just legit slipped the afikomen in there and I just sat on it. No one was gonna find it. It was so good. Anyway, that's one of my hiding spots.
Are we still in the Hillel sandwich, Rabbi?
Yeah, we haven't started the Hillel sandwich.
Okay, yeah, keep going. I distracted for a minute.
No, that's okay. There are so many, there are different traditions though. Like the tradition is that the kids take the afikomen and hide it and then ransom it in order to finish the Seder. So that's a whole other tradition. So the kids are hiding it, the adults have to go looking for it. And the kids are usually really very creative, and you have to pay them to get the afikomen back in order to finish the Seder. One of my favorite memories though is old boyfriend of mine who was running the Seder, and he was in charge of hiding the afikomen, and he hid it under the tablecloth right beside where he was sitting. And then at one point before the end of the Seder, he leaned.
Oh no, crunch.
Crack. So we all knew where the afikomen was. So you have to think. Someone I saw put in the chat that that's their favorite activity is to find ridiculous hiding places for afikomen. So there you go.
You're my people.
Yeah, yeah. So then we get to the Hillel sandwich, the korech, number 10. So the Earl of Sandwich, the English Earl of Sandwich, is generally credited for inventing the snack of his namesake. But in fact, the sage Hillel may have originated it 2,000 years ago by combining matzah, a slice of the paschal lamb, and a bitter herb. My first Talmud teacher of blessed memory likened it more to a soft pita wrap. In her view, the matzah of yore wasn't this hard cracker stuff that we have now, but in fact was something that was slapped against the side of the oven and cooked in very quick time and was soft. And so that's what she imagines the original Hillel sandwich was. So we don't sacrifice any longer, and so we're not eating the lamb, but the Hillel sandwich, the korech, is now only matzah, charoset, and a bitter herb. And my experience is that there's way more charoset than just about anything else because people are ready for sweet by now. And then we get to the meal, shulchan orech. I love this slide of a diverse group of people at the Seder. So once the korech is finished, it's time for the real meal. And if you are at an Ashkenormative Seder, it usually begins with a hard-boiled egg or boiled potato dipped in salt water, and some do both. And it quickly progresses, and this is in Ashkenazi households, to gefilte fish with horseradish, matzo ball chicken soup, chopped liver, and on and on and on. There's still main course and dessert. And Carmel is going to tell us about what they eat at a Jupanese Seder, and maybe Lauren will share that as well.
Oh, really? Well, I already said that I do chicken teriyaki and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to let Lauren take it away, because Lauren's a fantastic cook and creates the most incredible Jupanese recipes.
I'm not feeding you, I'm just talking about it, but thanks, that's really nice. So I'll just share that I have thought a lot about what a Jupanese Seder meal might taste like and what I might do. But the truth is, I don't have it in me to cook 2 Seder meals. Like, I just don't. And the nostalgic part of me wants the meal that I grew up with. And I'm not trying to satisfy my partner's nostalgia, because he didn't grow up with Seder. So really it's for me, and I do the traditional Ashkenazi meal. And as much as I'd like to do a second night completely different menu, I don't have it in me. But that's not to say, like, you by all means go forward and make the meal that reflects you and your family. Also, just sort of incidentally, I did not grow up with a first and second night Seder. This is because we only spoke to my mom's family. We weren't in relationship with my dad's family. So there wasn't a place for us to go second night. And I didn't even know that it was a thing until fairly recently. And that is also sort of a thing that might come up if only one side of your family celebrates Passover, as you too might end up with one night that you celebrate with family. Maybe you do a second night with other people, but maybe you go to somebody else's house, because frankly, making 2 giant meals back to back, as you know, like, this is 2 hours just to do a model Seder. It's a lot of work. So, you know, you do the things that feel right for you, but certainly there's nothing prescriptive about what the festive meal actually is. And you should feel free, aside from serving a loaf of bread, to make it something that you think is delicious and that reflects you and the people at your table, but most importantly, that you think is delicious.
Yeah, it's someone asked about what would be served at Sephardic Seders, and I don't know for sure, because I can say. Okay, I have some Mizrahi things, but you can tell us about this.
Oh, maybe. No, yeah. That's true. My friend is. So I've gone to a Mizrahi Seder before, and we've had like delicious meatballs that I can't remember the name for them, but you know, they have like apricots, and they're sort of sweet and sour, and they eat rice and beans during their Seder. So and like barbecued chicken, all sorts of things that were like not the things that I'm used to, but were delicious. And my enjoyment of the Seder was not diminished at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've also added leeks. So braised leeks with miso and mirin. And that went over very well at the last Seder I went to. Just FYI.
I think Mizrahi Seders would have a few eggplant dishes, for sure, and different kinds of meats, but prepared in ways that are local, with spices that are local. Someone's asking about resources for vegan Seder. I was just listening to a series from Judaism Unbound, and they're talking about how to, make vegan. And there are lots and lots of ways of doing that. The, the rice and beans and all of those things that fall in the category of kitniyot, which Ashkenazi don't eat, they will be at a Sephardic and Mizrahi Seder. Do people eat the bone? No, people don't eat the bone on the Seder plate. I'm assuming that that's what you're asking about, but no. Something else I learned recently, because I'm a lifelong learner, is that we talk about how in the traditional Seder, one of the sages says that you actually don't fulfill the commandment of the Seder unless you say the words Matzah, Pesach, Maror. But the point is, you don't eat them. That's not fulfilling the mitzvah, just saying those words and understanding the symbolism of them. And one of the reasons is that the Pesach, the Passover sacrifice, we don't do anymore. So we couldn't fulfill it if we were required to eat it, because we're not sacrificing animals anymore, at least not in the way that they were sacrificed back in Second Temple times. But there, you can go online. There are so many resources for different options, and it's also local. The foods are local, so what people are eating there, and it also is what a lot of people have potluck seders, so it's what people bring with them to your table. So it could be. I'm
imagining my grandmother with a potluck Seder, and it's very hard to imagine. But I do think that's a nice way of relieving your host of some burden. But yes, that is very anti everything that I've been raised with.
Yeah.
Well, this year I'm going
there was always my father's aunt. She was an amazing cook, Eastern European style cook. And there was always some kind of sweet and sour meat as well as chicken. Carmel, you were going to say something.
Oh, I just wanted to say that this year I've been invited to the Lesbian Seder in Victoria, and I will be flying out soon. And it's interesting how everyone over email is signing up or volunteering to do a specific thing. And it's just cute to see people who've known each other for decades like delineate all the tasks. And this year I will be doing a orange almond cake, which is not vegan, but for me, orange is very special, especially to the queer and trans community on the Seder table and plate. So this year it's taking a goodie but oldie recipe. And if you don't know Claudia Rosen's orange almond Seder cake, you must do that. It is the best.
Wonderful. So someone has asked, what is meluchia soup?
Yes, meluchia is a gooey green plant, and I describe that as if spinach and okra had a baby. You can find it in most Middle Eastern stores or Persian stores in the freezer section. I actually don't know what the English name is. I don't think it's regularly available fresh in the markets, at least not here in Vancouver, but typically the soup is served at a Mizrahi Seder instead of matzo ball and chicken soup. It's more meluchia and sometimes with lamb, and it's wonderful. It's a little on the goopy side, but I love it. It has been described to have the consistency of snot, and yeah, but it's wonderful. I love it, and I guess some people will do the same face to chopped liver. So there you have it.
Yeah.
What? So scandalous.
Yeah, I'm a chopped liver fan. Someone has asked if you could put a link to the orange cake in the chat. They would really enjoy that. So we've eaten the meal, and then we've had a lot of conversation about afikomen. We get to step 12, which is safun, which is eating the afikomen. So whether or not dessert is served after dinner, and it would be an unusual Seder meal if there wasn't dessert, but to each their own. The last food is officially
No, I don't think there is to each their own. I think there has to be dessert.
Okay.
I think this is not an area in which I'm willing to bet.
Yeah, even if it's just fruit, right?
And afikomen, does it not mean dessert?
Well, it actually comes from the Greek word epikuros. So it actually is something that's brought in, which is, it's got a kind of a bit of a negative connotation, really, but it's like, it's after the celebration is over and you go home and you eat this bit because it's the end of that raucous celebration that you've just been experiencing in the Pesach meal. So, but it also is understood to symbolize the Pesach sacrifice. And so it, however it's been hidden, whichever tradition your table decides to do, whether it's the leader who's in charge or the children or whatever, the Seder can't be concluded without the Afikomen, and a tradition says that the Seder must end before midnight. So everybody is supposed to, I read that. So the tradition is that everyone eats a little piece of the Afikomen, and that's the official end of their meal. It also, I read, and I like this, is that it also represents the part of the self or the soul that is lost or given up in enslavement. And because the Seder represents the journey from enslavement to freedom, at Safun, we reclaim the pieces of ourselves that we were missing. And we're ingesting that symbol so that we internalize it. I like that. Step 13, Barech. So Jewish meals always conclude with a blessing, and this meal is no different. It's grace. At this point, the meal may be over, but the Seder isn't. The third cup of wine celebrating the meal is poured, and after a blessing is recited, we drink it. And then we have a curious tradition. A cup of wine is poured in honor of the prophet Elijah, and a door is opened to allow Elijah in. And we sing a traditional song, Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. Many think that the cup is for Elijah. Actually, the extra cup stems from a rabbinic debate over whether we should drink 4 or 5 cups of wine during the Seder. The compromise was to drink 4. The 4th cup is drunk in step 14. And we pour a 5th and wait until Elijah comes to tell us which is the correct answer to this debate, whether it's 4 or 5. Of course, we also believe that the prophet Elijah will come to tell us of the coming of the Messiah, or the Messianic age. In other words, the coming of redemption. An alternative custom invites each person to pour a little of their own wine to fill Elijah's cup, symbolizing that each of us has a responsibility towards bringing about redemption, to repairing the world. In our diverse world, other cups have been added. Miriam's cup. It's a cup of water to honor Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Moses, who was a central figure in the Pesach drama. She stands guard loyally when her baby brother Moses is set floating on the Nile. And she arranges for a wet nurse, who happens to be Moses' own mother, who gets paid by Pharaoh's daughter for caretaking him and nursing him and living with her own child. Then Miriam leads the Israelites in singing and dancing after they cross the Red Sea. And during their wanderings in the desert, Miriam's miraculous well followed the Israelites until her death, when the well dried up. So we drink a cup of water for Miriam, recognizing all that she has contributed to the Passover story. And in the Haggadah that we have provided to you, there is a specific blessing for Miriam's cup. And now, most recently, Ruth's cup. This is a cup of wine that we pour to honor Ruth, the first Jew by choice. You probably know the story. Ruth is a Moabite who marries an Israelite living in Moab. After her husband's death, Ruth insists on accompanying her Israelite mother-in-law, Naomi, when she returns to Israel. There, she cares for Naomi and ends up marrying one of her relatives. Because of Ruth's declaration to Naomi, wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. She is considered the prototypical convert to Judaism. Ruth goes on to become the great-grandmother of King David. Thus, she's the ancestor of the Messiah to come. This cup not only honors Jews by choice, but the overall diversity of the Jewish people. And we have included in our Haggadah information about this newest cup, this new ritual. Step 14. After closing the door, the final Seder ritual includes singing special songs of praise to God, and then filling, blessing, and drinking the fourth cup of wine. We've included songs in our Haggadah and have prepared a playlist for you, which is included at the end of the resource list. Have we posted the resource list in the chat yet?
Not yet, but we'll send it out. We'll send it out.
Okay, good. One of our collaborators, Maya Letourneau from the Waldman Library here in Vancouver, has put together a resource list for you of books for children and adults on Pesach. Although Hallel is filled with lots of great songs, sorry about that. Just a moment.
This is one of those great songs.
It's because my husband was coming home. She was barking at him. So yes, you get dogs joining in. Hallel has lots of great songs such as Chad Gadya. By now, you, or if you are a guest, or your guests have probably started to leave, especially those with young children. It's inevitable, so don't be sensitive about it. It's the rare Seder that ends up with all of the participants it started with, staying right to the end. But quite frankly, some of the best songs and tunes are at the end. And then Nirtza, the conclusion, step 15. The prescribed rituals and actions end at the 14th step. Nirtza celebrates a conclusion. The most common prayer at the end is simply L'Shana Haba'a B'Yerushalayim, meaning next year in Jerusalem. But we don't mean the physical Jerusalem. We mean the metaphoric Jerusalem, that place where there is no longer separation, division, war, environmental degradation, global warming, domestic or any other form of violence, hatred, discrimination. The list goes on. That messianic age, it's a place of peace, love, and harmony. Depending on the hour and the level of energy of the participants, you may find yourself singing more songs, sometimes different versions of the same songs, and possibly even dancing. Some families make a tradition of reading aloud the Song of Songs at the end of the Seder. This is a tradition for the second night, actually. But be prepared for sleepy, impatient groans if you suggest it. So I see someone asking about discussion questions. When we have completed the formal part of our presentation, we will have, we'll just kind of open it up for people to unmute and unveil your cameras, and we will hang around to talk and discuss. But before that, we have a message from Maya from the Waldman Library, who unfortunately wasn't able to attend today.
Hi everyone, my name is Maya Letourneau and I'm the librarian at the Isaac Waldman Jewish Public Library. And I'm joining you today from the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. I hope that you all enjoyed our model Seder and that you're now feeling inspired and maybe a little bit more confident to lead your own Seder this year. So in case you would like to do some further reading to extend what you've learned today, the library has put together a list of resources for you. And the resource list includes things like inclusive Haggadot, recommended children's books, and ideas for integrating LGBTQ Passover traditions into your Seder. So most of these resources are available to borrow from the library. And if you have any questions about how to borrow books from the library, you can send us an email at library@jccgv.bc.ca. And I'd also like to invite everyone to get in touch with us. If you have any resources that you would like us to add to our list, we are happy to do so. So once again, thank you all so much for participating in this model Seder. I'm really sad that I wasn't able to be here in person today, but I do hope that you find this resource that we've put together useful. And I really hope that it helps you to extend your learning from today's event. And with that said, I hope you all have a wonderful Passover. And thank you so much to everybody who has helped to put this together. I think it's such a valuable resource for everybody, and I hope that you had a really great time. So thank you.
Thank you, Maya. So we are, we have actually a door prize, which Lauren is going to draw, which she's going to show to us.
I'll show you quickly, but I'm going to draw it after, I think, because
okay,
too much going on. But it has, wait, let's see. It's got, thank you for coming. It's been lovely to spend this 2 hours with you. I haven't gotten to see your faces because I've been sharing my screen the whole time, but now I see that there are people here, and that's lovely. So it comes with a Haggadah and an accompanying children's Haggadah. It comes with these plague dippers for when you're dipping your fingers in wine and dipping it out for plagues, and this beautiful set of linen matzah covers. I don't know if you can see it quite well. Linen matzah cover and afikomen cover. So one of you is going to win it, and we'll announce it by tomorrow. And yeah, and they're from the Haggadah Collective out of Toronto, which is a lovely retired teacher who put this together for her queer daughter to be able to have an inclusive Seder. And so I thought it was very lovely, and I'm glad to share it with all of you. So yeah, there you go. That's our door prize. And one of you lovely people who stayed through the whole 2 hours, amazing, good for you. This is like rehearsal for Seder. You're going to win this.
So we have a closing reading, but before that, I just want to thank our organizers and collaborators in Vancouver, JCUT Vancouver, Carmel, the Isaac Waldman Jewish Public Library, Maya, the Parrott Center for Jewish Culture, and me, Rabbi Susan Shamash. In Toronto, Jewish and LGBTQ plus at the Miles Nadell JCC, Lauren and Kara. And Lauren is going to read us a prayer for the road ahead. And then you're all invited to stay. We'll hang around for a while and answer questions. There's a few questions that have come up in the chat that we haven't addressed.
Susan, can you read the prayer for the road ahead? Because I don't have it here.
All right. Let me just find it. And I will read it. Sorry, I just
while you're searching for that, I will just give a little plug for anyone who's in the Vancouver area. JQD will be hosting a queer Jewish Seder on the second night at Or Shalom. I will be dropping a link in the chat. And yeah, so I think we have had 14 tickets left the last time I checked, which was a few days ago. So if you're still in the area, you can come on out to that or let your people know who may be in Vancouver.
Let your people know. And I'll plug that next Sunday evening, if you want to brush up on your Seder songs, we're going to be doing a free Seder sing-along where we're going to be going through the most common songs that you might hear at the Seder, but also some new and fun ones as well. So, and that's free, and we'll share that in the follow-up information. So please come and sing with us from the comfort of your living room. Were you able to find it, Susan?
Yes, I found it. This is by Miriam Grossman. May it be your will, our God and God of our ancestors, that you lead us in peace and direct our steps, our marching, rebellious, organized, queer, dance partying, prayerful steps in peace, and guide us in peace, and support us in just peace, and in the tearing down of walls, and in the rising up of peoples, and cause us to reach our destination in life and joy and peace, all of us together, no one left behind. Save us from every enemy and ambush, from robbers and wild beasts, and from the tear gas and flashbangs and sound cannons and nightsticks and rubber bullets, from furious hands that reach towards unarmed bodies. May you confer blessing upon the work of our hands and our movements and our histories, uplifted, remembered, redeemed. Grant us peace, kindness, and mercy in your eyes and in the eyes of all who witness us. Let human bodies be seen as human bodies, and bestow upon us abundant kindness. Remind us there is no scarcity of vision, power, strength, and hearken to the voice of our prayer, for you hear the prayers of all. Blessed are you, God, who hearkens to prayer and peace-seeking and rabble-rousing. Blessed are we who journey in action and prayer. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Susan, and thank you for your beautiful leadership of our Model Seder today. It was really a joy to do this with you, and with you, Carmel, and with you, Kara. I'm going to thank all of you so much for coming, and then I'm going to stop recording so that you can ask your questions in a closed space. But thank you all very, very much. It's been absolutely lovely to spend this Sunday mid or late afternoon, depending where you are, with all of you. And I'm going to stop recording now, and next year in Jerusalem.